Alright, so I just discovered something yesterday. I didn't read the patch notes. So apparently yesterday there was a score readjustment, target score readjustment yesterday. And I don't know what the algorithm is or the equation that they use, but they adjusted the target score to the length of the song. So the length of the track is lenient. The longer the track is, the more lenient the target score has become. So shorter tracks will obviously have a proportionally less effect, but there is a high chance that reaching those 3 stars yesterday was post-patch. So they feel quite good. I think a little, it almost normalized the tracks to between 86 to 90% accuracy. Also the scaling possibly reduced the impact of trap notes like negative score and also miss notes, because those miss notes and trap notes are still subtracting the same amount of score, while I'm guessing the way they did it is like it turns out to be like a percentage decrease in the threshold of the 3-star score. However, ultimately I would say it's the scoring tends to be a consequence of comboing a lot of times when it comes to the mechanical development of accuracy. And to me, that score scaling may sound like a motivation, sort of, but at the same time, full comboing is often the source of negativity, like a poor consistent reinforcement. It's not lowering the upper limit. Score in general and consistency is often below being hit 100% of the time. So generally speaking, if you want to increase the improvement of the sentiments of a game, to encourage players to continuously seek improvement, you lower the upper stimuli, like the top end. When you lower the top end, the goal becomes more feasible. Like, psychologically, it has an impact. If you're lowering a goal that's on the way to another goal, that tends to have less of a psychological impact. So if I had to take a guess, someone's going to see a balance check, they look at the patch, it's like, oh, well, it's mid, because you have to step over that goal to get to the goal that you want for the completion. So just my 2 cents on that small little patch balance. I actually think lowering the combo requirement is far exceeding the total score requirement. Even lowering the combo requirement would still not make combo requirements lower than the accuracy requirement. Rarely that is the case. Even from my personal play, it's rarely ever the case. I mean, unless you just always get rhythm gamers and stuff, or like music gamers, and that's your intent, that you want your game to only be enjoyed by those who have that, I think it's a misunderstanding of the pre-selection bias of individuals who play video games. Focus is very difficult. Score is a consistency nuance of repetitive play. Consistency is the act of playing. Comboing is less so. It is most definitely psychologically capped by an individual's ability to stay focused. And that's not understanding the core characteristics of the gaming community at large. However, with that said, if games promote this and it becomes popular, it could potentially help individuals develop longer focus depending on their emotional investment. Like if you're really emotionally invested in this game, trying to full combo can indirectly and intuitively enhance someone's focus. And if they can actively appreciate that, they would be able to transfer or translate that ability to actively focus longer to other games. Not that I'm not saying these games are gonna say these things. So if you don't really say these things, right? It's not like the game is telling you, hey, are you more focused now after doing the FC? That kind of thing. So without actively being aware of this, when someone goes to another game, they'll just recycle and learn from ground up again on what triggers their focus and whatnot. I really can't relate to this sentiment, but that's what I observe about people playing video games and doing things. It's a lot of times they do this activity, they learn this skill, and then the next thing they do is, no, this can't be relevant to anything else I do. Well, the learning process and a lot of inherent skills that are required to be successful in video games are transferable. They are dealing with triggers of the mind. However, it's rarely ever transferable when it comes to knowing that it's transferable. So you often, one of the funny things you hear are, say, you're bad at rhythm games, so you play one rhythm game and you practice and clearly you completed the game, and then you go to a new rhythm game and the first mindset you have is, oh yeah, I'm bad at rhythm games, so you start from ground up again, as opposed to gathering and actively figuring out what worked in the previous game, not the game mechanics itself, but what got you to the working mechanics, and then taking that approach and iterating it onto a new rhythm game, to the point where as you play rhythm games, you can actively describe how you became better at music games. Often when you hear people play Souls games and whatnot, they say they're great because they've completed lots of Souls games. It's like, well, can you explain how that led you to be better at Souls games? Have you digested, deconstructed, and understand the components that you've become more proficient at, or expectations and currents? That's active learning. Passive learning is, I just did it and it worked, so I did it again intuitively, again and again. Intuition is, for me, for all intents and purposes, synonymous in a lot of ways to passive learning. And it's great because our human, thanks to the way our mind and body works, passive learning, it encompasses the general default method of learning. What's active learning? Well, if you hate school, you hate active learning. That's just it. If you like sports or doing things and learning just by doing, you're a passive learner. That's how I arbitrarily separate them. It's not bad or good, it's just you could be an active learner and a passive learner whenever you want, if you choose so. But without practice, you can't be an active learner. So you default to passive learning because it's not the top end, just like this. FCing is at the top end. So if FCing is the top end and you lower the score target, this score target will just continue to feed back to the top end. So if you can't achieve the top end, you cap yourself. If active learning is constantly more exhausting or require the perception of higher effort, then passive learning gets defaulted. So this is the same. Like, I'm probably still going to default to FCing. Actually, the score thing, when I got this, like, I don't know, this score and this score yesterday, right? The first thought that came to my mind, even though I know active learning versus passive learning and all this stuff, and the stuff that I just said, all I can think about is I still have to FC this. So yeah, great, that score is great, but you capped the completion with FCs. So irrelevant of the patch, you might put a band-aid on individuals who might feel like when you read the patch notes, feel a slight glimmer of hope, like, oh yeah, that's kind of motivational. They go play the game as I realize the rate limiting step is still full comboing for the satisfaction of completion. So ultimately, if I had a hot take, does it hurt more if you had a glimmer of hope and it was snatched away by your realism, or just getting slapped with the realism in the first place? I personally think if I had to empathize with the casual gamer, it's a slap in the face. So you're like, hey, here's a dangling carrot, play our game some more because we lowered the target score, but the rate limiting step is still FC. So come back and play just to remind yourself, hey, you can't FC this. It's a shame. That's kind of my hot take. The minority, the completionists would say, oh, that's just more encouragement and motivation, and I agree. Like, I'm a little bit more encouraged by the 3 stars, but it can backfire too. It's like, oh, I got the 3 stars because they lowered the threshold. There's a lot of entanglement, but I think one of the things when it comes to game design is to take account or accountability on what is your gold standard, not the band-aids that lead to the gold standard, in my opinion, because that stuff can backfire a lot, where like, hey, now the gap to performing a target score is less, closer to the gap to FCing. So now when you get a target score, you're gonna get a complaint why you have a 3-star score and you still can't FC. To make it creates a larger gap in skill. So ultimately that makes it even harder to get to an FC. So learning in my opinion, I'm biased to a smoother learning curve, not a staircase thing. The staircase thing is great. It got popularized from games like soul-like games and stuff where it clicks, you launch up a skill. But rhythm games, in my opinion, rhythm games or music games that require precision and consistency, has a resolution of like 1 misstep, smooth curves. I truly believe that the appropriate type of learning curve for a mechanic that has the resolution of legit milliseconds of error requires a smooth learning curve. Just a smooth, linear, maybe a little bit flatter, maybe like here, learning curve, not a staircase. Staircases can work for completionist games, like beating a Souls-like boss. Every boss is a staircase. The moment you click with the boss, you just jump up in skill level, because reproducibility is almost legitimately increased or guaranteed after the first completion. This is not. When you try to reproduce the thing, it's going to be reproduced with some error over and over, and this game has no tolerance for that error. Comboing does not introduce any tolerance for it. Score does, but it's a band-aid. Like, hey, here you go. Like, good job, you're 99.9% consistency. If you go up to a musician, for example, and say, hey, I noticed that you messed up 1% of the time based on your studio album, so your performance just isn't good enough. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like, oh yeah, I noticed that, hey, you changed it up a bit. Was that like intentional or not? It's like, yeah, I was just filling it out 3% of the time. It's way more than 3% of the time. So if I were to thematically try to associate the game's attempt in the celebration of music, creatively, that's just not it, in my opinion. That's a personal opinion, because as an appreciator of music, having flexibility is one of the themes of creative music playing. This is more, it has become a video game. With comboing, it has become a video game. Did not transcend past just being a video game placed on top of music. That's my personal opinion. It's very rigid, it's kind of aggressive, but the spirit of music is not captured in video games a lot. You have to talk outside the video game. I was gonna say something else. Today I was thinking of summarizing, so I'm getting into the point where I'm rehearsing and summarizing some of the pros and cons, or like the psychological or mindsets of my experience with this game, just to wrap it up a bit. So am I gonna get these FCs? We're about to start the 3 attempts each. I think I could get this FC. We've played every part. This one too. We haven't done any of the bosses. Bosses are very long, but the thing is, the bosses are very long, so the 3-star scores are probably going to be attainable. The combos are not. For me, not for myself. It would require an incredible amount of... This is not a boss, but this has multiple sections, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that either. I could probably get the 3-star score now, though. If I could get all the 3-star scores, that I could get this FC. This one, maybe, probably not. Actually, I'm not even sure if I can get this FC. This one I can get. I can get this one. Heck no. Absolutely no. That's not gonna happen. It would require a dedication that I can't afford based on how the devs approached this game. I could see myself getting this. That's not too bad. Heck no. Well, no, I can't get yellow pepper. There's no way I'm gonna get yellow pepper anytime soon. Maybe I'll come back like 2 years after understanding something else, but I don't think this game is gonna be updated that often, that long. Not a chance. Maybe a 2-star score. So realistically, where I'm standing on my effort scale is, there is a chance I could get 3-star scores on all of them due to this patch change. So I'm not going to diminish their attempts to make it easier. I will attempt to apply and try to get the 3-star scores to test the leniency of the 3 stars. Anyways, let's just go, and now we get to try more tracks today, because I really want to know how lenient the score is based on playing the longer song. it's just a smidge. I think it's like 2 or 3%, which was just enough for my ACK to cross the three swords. So it did significantly for myself. It probably didn't for the majority of players. I'll probably play this game offline though, from time to time. My completionist sub would probably take this offline at some point. I rush. That was okay. My adjustment would be how many of the things you hit, not comboing. Total notes hit, and they could make it really high as well, but it would remove comboing consecutiveness. For a casual game, that would be the approach, in my opinion. You still get the goal that the developers said about being precise enough, but remove the high glass ceiling of being focused the entire time. Combo should just be switched to total hit or hit percentage, and then it would be like, oh, you missed 5. That's still an FC -5, and it would be a more flexible score system. For the combo thing, it would be as high as they want. Like, you can only have 3 misses. There are other games that do this. This isn't like a novel idea or anything. Generally speaking, percentage miss or percentage hits is a more consistent metric for precision. The word they specifically used when they were responding in like the thread in Steam to the high score, like high combo and high score requirement, is that they want to encourage precision. Comboing is not precision. It can be a reflection partially of precision, for sure, but percentage miss and percentage hit is higher metric breakdown for precision. If you miss only 0.1% of the time, that is a measure of precision. Accuracy is score. Score is accuracy. But combo is not the greatest metric for measuring precision. So like here, I would accept that possibly missing 5 is not precise enough. It could be missing 3 or missing 2. Full comboing. I'm not even sure if it's actually a full combo because I don't really know. I didn't count the number. It doesn't tell you how many hits there are total or like how many objects there are total. But there might be like, you might be able to miss the first thing and the last thing. I don't know. But right now it's 0. So if your goal is to be 100% for precision, I guess it's your prerogative as the dev. But how often do people, you're framing your community or you're framing your game to be something that's only tolerable about 100% of the time? But I don't know how often, what the rate of that is. I mean, actually we can tell. Hold up. We can tell by looking at the number of CDs, actually. Which, the people who play this game are really great. The people who play this game really like the game. So that's not a non-issue. 25 CDs, 1.7% of owners. That's quite high, actually. For 100%, as in no drops. That means there are people who really love this game, or either that or they pre-select for really rigorous people. Usually the top, very top hard quote-unquote achievements I would constitute in terms of Steam achievements, less than 2% is like coveted status, and 1.7, that's pretty good. That means at least 25 of the tracks were FC'd by 1.7% of owners. Now, it is a percentage, so it, depending on how successful this game is, 1.7% could be like 10 players. And then you're assuming there are 1,000 players, right? That'd be, well, it'd be close to 20, but 1,700 players. So we go up to say 50,000 players. That give you about like wait, I'm terrible with math. So 1% would be like 500 players, so 1,000 players. As the number goes up, the relative amount of people will seem like it's lower, but proportionally it's the same. So do I find that acceptable? I think it's acceptable. I'm just a bit critical about it because the game could probably be far more popular emotionally than it is in its current state with the scoring system. The scoring system is exceptionally important for a game like this. Other games, not so much. Like, they're usually just vanity and whatnot. I only got the first set. I guess I could have, I can't talk while I'm doing this, but I guess I could have, Sugar Rush the second set. I really wanted to get it though. We're getting pretty close. We also got the back and forth starting on my less dominant finger. Another design thing that would be interesting to maybe compensate for how the music sound is to add hit sounds. When you tap, have a hit sound. See how your interpretation or feedback or audio cue lines up with the game's audio. So having just like a baseline hit sound is fine. Just one, like a drum tap or something for each stroke can be helpful. Again, and train the ears. It's not very necessary in a game like this because the charts are made on the most prominent sound as opposed to like Osu standard. I delayed the second one. I got second set. I got that too. Well, I mean, we have all the tools. That was 3 attempts. Do I want to do it again? No, not really. Fine. I'm gonna stick to our timetable here. Becoming more reliable on the back and forth. I hit the wrong button. That's new. Yeah, I mean, like, I only missed one note. 2 notes. One was a misclick. But because it's an FC that is required, it has no reflection. It has very low reflection on precision. Like, the difference between this and this is where you missed. And the difference between almost FCing and not FCing is incredible, but it has very little measure of a player's precision. Hey, Cockers. Let's just stick to what we're gonna do. Just 3 playthroughs. Yeah, see, that's still only 3 misses. And it's way way beyond the threshold of the 3-star score nowadays. Last time, take 3. Oops. Oh, that was take 3. We were a little bit slow on one double. I didn't even tap it. I just skipped it. Maybe tomorrow. We're not going back through that again. This one. Honestly, I'm not. We're not gonna work on that yet. And we have another FC here to do. Still 99.9% act, but you know. Well, not 0.9, probably just 99%. In terms of hit percentage, I mean. Sorry, not act. Hit percentage. I don't think my space bars are fast enough in one beat apart after 4 taps. So I have to like really book it. Oops. Let's take one. I don't remember it. Alright, I'll restart it with the beginning few notes. When you miss one, you miss all of them. I didn't really miss all of them. It's just the smoke was clouding it. It's an exaggeration. We did hit most of the non-spacebar things. Alright, let's try take 3. pretty sure I wasn't early on those. Weird. We haven't cleared that in a long time. We actually cleared it the first time. Like way back. So maybe I'm a little early or something. Kinda looked like I was early. It kind of looked like it was a little bit early on one of them. We're getting closer. Next one. That was 3 takes. Okay. There's one section we haven't hit yet. The other ones we have. Just the middle section in between. It's where we break. More often than not. I missed the space bar again. I mean the dodge bar. But we can complete them, just not consistently. And then the middle section is where we break more often. I keep forgetting the space bar, the dodge bar. Oh, I got the space bar, but I forgot the right tap. Oops. I was like spamming tapping just to loosen up my hand. Of course. Of course, that's a habit that comes back from Osu. I keep missing the first note. I think it starts later. Anyway. It's 2. I mean, we can get the 3-star score. Our accuracy is pretty high. Even with the suboptimal sugar rush. Let's. I saw the word black. Black are trap notes. If you hit them, it'll obscure your chart and you lose negative points for it. I think it's like minus 50. So those are the offbeats. You don't want to tap on offbeats. It challenges you not to be offbeat. The third take is commonly the worst of the three. The second take is usually a good mix. Both. Not HP though, just space. What if Osu had trap notes? The closest thing I can tell you about Osu trap notes is if it's an offbeat that's super stacked. That's the closest I can think of. The way the trap notes are lined up in these charts line up with that type of mapping. So for example, like a slider head with a super stacked tap, but the tap is early, drop a note, then the third note, and then you slide. Anything that has stacked but has an offbeat. So if you have a super stacked note and there's a missing beat or 2 beats off note offset, so like tap once, 2, 3, 4, then 1, then tap again. If you have 3 super stacked notes, that's kind of what trap notes do. It prevents you from hitting offbeat. So in Punish Issue, if you hit the offbeat, which the closest thing in Osu standard is when you have super stacked and they're on different beats. So it's not on the downbeat. Like a single tap would be 1, 2, right? You would tap once and then the next beat, 1, 2. But you can tap once, skip a beat, then tap it, or skip 2 beats, then tap it, and they're super stacked. That would be the closest thing I can think of in Osu standard. So a lot of times people might tap early or tap late and they get punished for it because the note is already there and it would be considered a miss in Osu standard. The most common stuff is the tap, delay, tap, slide. So you have one tap and then you pause, or a burst, right? A burst that lands on a delay slider note. So if you're tapping 6 times, if you see another circle underneath, you accidentally tap 7, you slider break. So the trap note would be the off note if you accidentally tap on a different timing. So you didn't wait for the slider head, you just tapped 1 extra time and slider broke. That would be like hitting a trap note in this game. Because the trap note is every other beat that isn't the beat that you're on. Yep. Does it feel worse? It feels pretty bad here too. Yeah, it feels pretty bad here. Alright, that was the third take on this thing. So we're moving on to this one. I tapped 1 extra time because I ended up on the wrong finger. I have a tendency to do odds better than I do evens. Actually, those are odds, so I'm kind of screwing up that. That was late. I lied. Probably better at evens than odds in this game. I feel like it's pretty common tendency in general to do better at odds. Osu, if you take a giant pool of maps, the common pattern, it favors odds. It doesn't favor evens. So it's an aesthetic choice in rhythm. Like when you're saying like you're drumming or singing, it's kind of cool, or it feels kind of nice to hear odd number of notes. I don't know why that's the case, or maybe music songwriters just decided that the songs that were picked, for whatever reason, odd numbers are more recurring in Osu standard. At least if we're talking about Osu. So like pentas, 3s, 5s, and 7s occur a lot more than 2s, 4s, and 6s. Because if you think about it, like triples compared to doubles, which one occurs more often? And then pentas compared to 4s, which one occurs more often? And I don't have like the super raw stats, but the tendency of our play style reflects the tendencies of how often they come up. I was thinking it has something to do with general tendency to lead with one finger. I do not relate to that, so I can't really tell you that. But if it's an odd, it would have double the amount of hit. It would have a percentage increase in actuation. But ending a finger and leading a finger can be different fingers. Many times, if you haven't played Osu Standard, the general consensus is you would even out your tapping. So you would tend to be an even tapper. So you would end on the opposite finger that you lead, general tendencies. However, when you play Osu, it ends up being on the same finger. So if you lead with one finger, you end at one finger. That's the tendency, and that's odd numbers of notes. That's how I broke it down a while ago, because I have a problem with it. I end on fingers that I don't desire because I have no way of I don't have enough finger control to stop myself from doing one or the other consistently. And I wanted to know why this is the case, or what is leading me to creating this tendency. And in this game, it highlights it because if you tap one extra time, anywhere, anytime is considered a miss. In Osu Standard, that's not the case. It has to be a miss on a circle. So you could tap outside of the chart and it will still be fine. So some bursts, some stuff are more lenient and less lenient because of missing trap notes in Osu. So it's a combination of all of them, but the driving, the statistics, like the observing thing that for me personally, the thing that I just described, why my tendency is because the maps I play, the maps I tend to play, have odd numbers of notes. Which lead finger? There is a dominance in the lead finger because of exposure. So if I spend most of my time today leading with my left finger, because of odd notes, I will use my index finger would have more actuation time. And because of the more actuation time, I would tend to end on the pointer finger. This game has a mix of both. Sometimes it has lead finger changes. Leading with my middle finger is less dominant. So when there's a triple in this game that leads with the middle finger, it takes a little bit longer than the pointer finger. So right, left, right is more dominant than left, right, left. However, when we play them, it gets normalized very quickly. What the miss that happens even more often is when there's a even followed by an odd, or an odd followed by an even. So when you do a triple into a 6, there's a chance it's going to be treated like a 3 and a 7, or a 3 and a 5. And that's when you get into trouble of either skipping a note or tapping one extra time. And those two are related. All the stuff that you said and everything, they are all contributing to that idea. and trying to explain it statistically is this game blends both. They tend to use evens and odds about split enough to cause an inconsistency. In Osu, maps tend to be either dominated by if it was a double, like if it was a music that's double, like dominated by doubles, you'll actually see a heightened increase in even number of notes because it sounds metrically, like rhythm, like beat wise, a double heavy song gets for whatever reason gets accompanied with a lot of even burst because of maybe the timing, music. I don't know enough about music theory anymore to understand if you had a song that featured a lot of doubles, that other longer burst, like rolls, like drum rolls and like string rolls would also be even to like maybe time up and match up the metrics. Like maybe it's the time signature is 4/4 and you tend to do doubles, and then the song you're playing might be the time signature maybe is on an odd time signature, so that triples and pentas, and maybe most of the genre of music that Osu tends to map are on odd signatures or something. That can be very well a thing. I don't know, I didn't do a deep dive into analyzing different types of music because it would take way too long, and I'm not a musician by practice or a music theorist by practice. It would be pretty sweet though to interview an expert who like data mines music compositions and trends and then apply that to the Osu bank and figure out if maybe most of the songs are on odd timing signatures. So then you have 3s, 5s, and 7s a lot because they aesthetically sound great when you hit them. But from a novice standpoint, like my pool of maps, triples occur way more than doubles. Pentas occur way more than quads. So odds create asymmetry in finger actuation. Evens don't. And this game, on the early stuff, they're mostly even. So like right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, or like right, left, left, right. It's not right, left, right, left, right, left. And then when you get to the later songs, they throw in odds, and odds create dominance because one finger is actuating far more. Yeah, it does. You have to be like a songwriter. Like there aren't songwriting is a very underappreciated craft. Like you hear a great song, right? It's like, oh, this is great. It's like, you're like, oh, the band's great and stuff. But a lot of times the songwriter is the one who composed the song. And then it takes a lot of dexterity for the player to play it, but songwriting is just, it's so different from actually playing the song, like the composition. There's so much theory that's involved in it. It's kind of like playing this game. I'm trying to review this game and making commentary on it, but programming the game, like making the game, is just an entire world of underappreciation, because as gamers, we don't appreciate making the game, like literally. It's very hard for us to empathize. And when we listen to a song, the whole product is there, but the process of writing the song is just completely different. So when I always talk about my appreciation for music, I tend to make sure that I'm not giving people the impression that I enjoy music and I'm a musician, but I am not a songwriter or a composer. It's incredibly underappreciated, in my opinion, the craft of making something, because you don't see it. You don't get to see that. And I also don't want to diminish mapping. Mapping is way different from playing Osu. It's the same relationship. It's a similar facsimile of it, where the act of creating a composition and seeing the composition being played out are two entirely different things. And it's so awesome when you have, which you said it takes a lot of passion and even a lot of time. It's super rare for an extremely skilled musician to also be an extremely skilled songwriter. You might be thinking, well, there are some, yeah, they're the real exception. Typically, if you're a really skilled player, you can't really, if that person does songwriting, the songwriting will cap the musician. As in, if it's a really skilled musician and their songwriting's underplayed, what happens is they write what they're able to, and their skill is capped by their songwriting. If you flip it around, the songwriting could be super great, but if you don't have the ability to play it, you have to limit the songwriting so that you can play it. So some of the best tracks, like the most wonderful tracks, is the really super rare occasion that a songwriter, a super skilled songwriter, is like the closest brother or like the closest sister, like they resonate and it matched up with a super skilled player. So then you have the classics, the super intricate stuff that songwriting meets playing. Generally speaking though, it's more of the songwriter is very good, the musician is very good, they kind of jive and vibe together, and then they come up with a product that is a slight compromise for the player and a slight compromise for the songwriter. But it can be even greater than the sum of their parts. So often the hits and stuff is the greater of sum of their parts, but they're not operating at full capacity because they have to compromise. In the super rare occasion, a person is so passionate that they can be super skilled at playing and writing at the same time and put together. You can probably name them on single hands, who are able to appreciate how music theory takes advantage of the trends and make it super popular, and they can play anything they want. We're not talking about complexity. We're not talking about like eccentricity. Like, you can go, if you want eccentricity, you listen to classical music, you listen to Baroque period, you listen to Franz Liszt on the piano. We're talking about songwriting elevated to the point where they know how to make people feel in the ways they want them to feel. And we're talking about popular music. But popular music is not, I'm not leaning towards popular music and manufactured music. Now, the person who created the popular trend created it before it became manufactured. And then those trend starters will move on to the next thing. So those are great songwriters. They understand, hey, this is a popular trend, I'm gonna milk it. Now the big companies come in and manufacture it, I'm going off to the next thing. So they're trendsetters. And those are the songwriters I'm talking about. And then musicians are there are trend-setting musicians. Like a form, a method of playing that gets popularized because they understand the artwork, right? So it's sweet. I think all this stuff is great. Just very, very hard to balance. But for me, I dabble in music theory enough to understand that certain time signatures like certain types of beats. And the number of beats in a time signature makes it aesthetically pleasing. Like, for example, trying to fit doubles in an odd time signature can be clashing. Like, it's not, I don't know, humans have this intuition like, wait, that sounds like every other beat is offbeat with the song or something, and it turns out it's like a time signature clash with the number of beats in a measure. So I like to believe it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that, oh, like we just happen to tap odds better than evens. And that plays into all of this. Like, understanding that, I've been practicing for Osu, I've been practicing evens more than I've been practicing odds. Or I've been practicing odds more than evens, because when I'm not playing Osu, a lot of things are on even time signatures and even beats. So like left right, you know, like the drums, like left right, left right, left. Like when you're tapping, you're going like left right. Like whenever I'm like exercising and stuff, I'm doing like even balanced stuff. But when it comes to Osu, the worst skill I have is hitting odds. So I practice triples, pentas. Pentas are horrendous. I drop the last note all the time. Like there's a burst, 5 bursts. The last note is slow. It is always slow because I tap evenly. I always tap 4 times and I forget there's a 5th note. So my reading speed is compensating for it, but it's compensating not fast enough. Basically, it's like it's always green. It tends to be 150% of the time. A good example is play any DMB song, right? If you play DMB song, for whatever reason, the mappers decide to favor 3 5s. 3 5 3 5 3 5 slide. 3 5 3 5 3 5 slide. 3 5 slide. 3 5 slide. That's like the DMB standard, right? So instead of 2 4 2 4 slide, or 1 2 jump 2 4 slide, is typically 3 and 5s. I don't know, but I'm horrendous at DMB and it sticks out like a sore thumb. Every time triple, the 3rd note is slow sometimes, or the 1st note is fast, and then go through the penta and I either am early on the 1st note or late on the last note, because I'm an even tapper. I tap evenly. I as a musician, right, as a violinist, almost all the pieces I played in classical tends to be an even time signature. So you're always playing quarter notes. You frame everything around quarter notes. There are 4 beats per measure. And coming into the hipper stuff, this is the deep cut on why whenever Sun's around and Coffer's around, and I always say I'm not hip enough for this. Hip means playing on odd time signatures and like tapping in odds. Like I'm not hip enough yet. It's hip as in nowadays, since people aren't classically trained musicians or like people who play even time signatures, they're awfully just whatever time signatures. So you guys grow up being exposed to a completely different frame of mind than I do. I generally think like, hey, a full cycle is tapping every evenly, like the alternating perspective, right? But man, those like those songs that go like jump 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 and then triple into another triple, jump jump jump, all I can see is triple triple 6 notes. Like I see a 6 divided into 2, and I would be early in between, in the middle of the 2 triples. So I'm trying to orient myself. It's like it's a triple pause triple. It's not a 1 2 3 4 5 6 and then running across. It's a triple pause triple. And Sun would come in and say like, what do you mean, Mac? Just slurp the triples. You just slurp them up. They're the easiest things. Like 4s are the easiest things. Quarter notes are the easiest things. Or half notes, not half notes, sorry. 8th notes. So in classical music, quarter notes is where you start. 1 2 3 4. I'm doing this because I used to play the violin, right? 1 2 3 4. And then how you get doubles? 1 2 3 4. I mean 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So you divide the quarters into 8th notes. and they're even still. You just divide quarter notes, or you double the quarter note, so you get a half note. So instead of doing 1 2 3 4, you go 1 2 3 4, so you're counting 2 per things. I started tapping evenly, but my higher rank said that I'm shooting myself in the foot because I'm starting patterns with different fingers for no reason without. Yes, exactly. You're a full alt player, right? If you're a full alt player, you would. Oh no, you're not. Oh, so you're doing what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm not a full alt player, but I'm starting patterns on different fingers. And it was pretty clear that one is weaker than the other. I totally can empathize with that. I say it all the time. You lead with your ring finger. I lead with my pointer finger on anything 5 or lower, but I lead with my middle finger on anything 5 or greater. So like on 5s, occasionally it would be different lead fingers, and it would... So it gets really confused, but my goal is to balance all of it out. Like instead of having a lead finger, I would love to. So like I single tap on my pointer finger and single tap on my middle finger, which if I single tap on my middle finger, I lead into a triple on my pointer finger, which is stronger than tapping on my pointer finger and leading into a triple on my middle finger. They're not less accurate. One is just slower than the other. So when I'm playing like 9.5 or at the edge, it would be preferable that I single tap on my middle finger and lead in on my pointer finger, because the dexterity leading is faster. And it creates a crazy inconsistency. But one thing to say is the silver lining is I can lead with both fingers a lot more than someone who dominates by one finger. But it's at the sacrifice of consistency, because you double the amount of time that it's required to train yourself to do that. And every time you're doing the other thing, you're not doing the other thing. So if you're constantly leading with your pointer finger, you're not constantly leading with your middle finger. So ultimately you get an averaging effect, and that averaging effect lowers your consistency. That's the trade-off. Would I give it up? Not really. That's why I'm okay with where I am in OSU. It will be very difficult it's a lot more difficult for me to raise my consistency than someone who consistently start on the same finger. Like if they always lead on the same finger, it creates consistency. I did train the ability to start patterns from the pointer just in case. It's not as good, of course. Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? So like the time you took to train that, it can create interference with the time you didn't and you used to lead with the other finger. So you get an averaging effect. And you understand that that's what's going to happen. And if you're happy about it, then you're happy about it. I prefer to be able to lead with both fingers. So I half alt and half single tap on both fingers. So whenever a song gets through in OSU, you can see that my pointer finger and middle finger are about close in actuation time. Like how many times they tap. But I'm not alting. Like I'm not full alting. It's just I single tap with my middle finger, and then the next thing I do is single tap with my index finger. So I go back and forth. Pointer, single tap sometimes, and then the next time it's my middle finger, then back and forth. So I single tap with both fingers, as opposed to I single tap with one finger and then I alternate for burst and whatnot. So, and you always lead with one finger. I do both, and it diverts the consistency. So I can explain why I'm less consistent, especially when it deals with transitioning between lead fingers. If I'm caught in a map transitioning between different lead fingers, like 1-2 jumps straight into a burst, any of those recurring patterns can flip the lead finger. So the moment those patterns occur enough and flip the lead finger, every time it hits on a less dominant lead finger, it would be less consistent than the one that's more comfortable. depending on the pattern, the other finger could be more dominant, as in it feels more comfortable on the other finger. Like for example, 1-2 jumps into a thirds, so it's slower. It would be my less dominant finger. It's better. My less dominant finger is slower, but it has more finger control. The more dominant finger is faster, and it's prone to better for speed. It loses finger control at the expense of speed because of my tendencies. The faster you go, the more training you require in finger control in order to maintain the consistency of that speed. So that's also a thing that I've considered trying to balance out a little bit. That might be way more than you wanted to know about that stuff, but that's personal information that I've kept for myself. You know, like when I'm training and stuff, this is what I learn about myself. I can explain the inconsistency at least to a greater extent than just feeling it. I don't like trusting my feelings, so feelings are very untrustworthy. Oops, I tapped the wrong button there. Oops, I hit my spacebar a little too late on the second one. Whoops, that's a wrong input. That's early. Dude, it's so hard to transition into a sugar rush without... See, now I visually associate triples and doubles with their actual input. So when I hit sugar rush, it just throws everything out of whack. Like, the moment... I know those are doubles, but because of the visual association of what a double looks like in a triple, the moment I sugar rush, everything just goes out the window. Sugar rush is so much more distracting. Last thing I wanted to mention, because I feel like it's a bit funny, I had a leftover habit from the time I used to do what you described. Sometimes I start a series of singles with pointer, but single tap the rest of them with ring. Yeah, I had it. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? With all this said, it sounds confusing. It sounds like I'm giving up stuff, or it sounds like I'm compromising. The idea is, when you're given a task, if you can deconstruct these things, you can choose to orient your mindset and be appropriate for it in the time. Like for me, I don't expect myself to be playing Osu forever, like to the end of time or indefinitely. So when I need to adjust to a new game or adjust to a new task, I know enough about what I used to do, and I can choose to entrain it against it. So the idea is, I'm preserving my dynamics. I'm not going to become a specialist in this way, but I don't want to be stuck in a habit, because for me, the most rewarding thing is to be able to do a lot of things. Not a lot of things well, but not a few things best. Because these tasks aren't monumentally what I favor the most. In terms of like its application, obviously communication, psychology, being able to be dynamic is what I'm specializing. So you can even say my troubles in OSU and my troubles in games overall is a confirmation of the trade-off and compromises that I have made to be a dynamic person. So not only does when I have trouble reaching a score set by this to be that good, is I know it means what I'm doing is a proper trade-off. Yeah. So the idea is I want to be, when someone needs me for something, right? Or when someone talks to me with something, I need to at least appear competent most of the time. So if you ask yourself, if your goal is to always feel competent, stop being a specialist. That's unfortunate. That's the truth. The more you specialize in something, the more you're sacrificing your competence in everything else. So you have to ask yourself, which one's more important? You can balance it. You can be even, you can take away some of your time from OSU and then divvy it up along other things, and you'll be more competent overall in the other things. But it's a choice you have to make, and being understanding to yourself, telling yourself that, yeah, these are sacrifices I'm making for gains that I'm gaining. It helps with emotional stability. It helps with knowing that you've made the choice and these are realistic outcomes, right? I want to be great in science. What am I trading off? Well, I can't be great in everything else. Okay, being great in science isn't going to make me a great basketball player. Those are really obvious choices, but there are subtle choices. Like being great at streaming, a stream stamina player in OSU will take time away from making you a great jump player. And you might be saying, whoa, there are players that look like they're great at everything. It's because the system favors that. Like there's a minimal amount of things that can be enough. So those people's caps are just relatively higher. Caring about skills outside of games. To me, you have to ask yourself if they're important to you. For me, there's no amount of a game, any closed system is fair game to me. Fair, like if it's a closed system, it can rarely ever impact my self-esteem, because what I'm doing when I'm playing games is I'm taking as much of the essence of the game and I'm using it to contribute to my bigger picture. So closed systems are what I study most of the time, and video games are wonderful because they're literally closed systems. There are you try your best to try to open the system, but the system is closed off, so you can study it in its entirety. And that's the fun part about being outside the game all the time. If your mindset is always outside the game, you're always looking from the outside in. Trade-off, you can't be great in the system then. You're trading off being a participant in the system. So like, what's a good example in music games? Tapping off rhythm. Apart from emotional intent, yeah, it's understandable, Worm. Intuitively, so this is what I mean by earlier I was talking about passive learning and active learning. Emotional intelligence, or the feeling of gravitating to emotional intelligence, come with an intuition, and intuition feels very comfortable. I think intellectual intelligence is overvalued not for the reasons of, hey, it's great to be smart. It's just a lot of intellectual intelligence is non-intuitive, and intuitive feels very human-like. When something has a component of intuition, like feeling a beat, feeling a rhythm, feeling how you feel about difficulty and stuff, it's very at home. It's rehearsed, and you're constantly training that. So it's a very comforting feeling. Intellectual is abstraction. So if there's one gold standard to measure someone's intellectual intelligence, and it's abstraction. If you want a creative outlet that is indefinitely feedback, that can compete with emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is endless. You're a human being. Pretty much anything can be emotionally interpreted. It constantly feeds you. There's no end to emotional intelligence. Intellectual intelligence, that competitive outlet is abstraction. So if you participate in a hobby that has no closed system for abstraction, that's the equivalent. So what is an example of that? Abstract art, writing, all the stuff that's like you don't know if it's good or bad. That's why it's the equivalent of emotional intelligence. When you're playing a video game, that's not true. Video game is the lowest form of intellectual intelligence. Or what I mean is not lowest as in like it's bad or good. It's lowest as in it's a low barrier for engaging intellectual intelligence without feeling like, dude, where do I start? Like, for example, if you go to the top level of abstraction, create a masterpiece artwork right now. Your head would be like, say what? Like, where do you even start? What are the rules? Like, what do I practice? How do I know if it's the best piece of artwork? You don't. That's the highest level of intellectual intelligence. But not all of us can do that, right? So we tend to frame it. And for me, I use video games because it's a closed system. There are rules. There are ways to observe it. There's ways to measure it. It makes it simplified. And then you just do a lot of it. So how do you compensate for a lower form of intellectual intelligence engagement? You do more of it. You sample more of it. So play more games to extract more intellectual understanding. For myself, because I consider myself an intellectual, so I collect more or less intellectual property and ideas from video games. I don't have a grand emotional investment in a game. So if a game makes me feel bad, it's less of a learning lesson because I already know it's probably gonna make me feel bad. What I learned, how it makes me feel bad, is the intellectual value that I'm getting from it. What is making me frustrated? How is it making me frustrated? And how does that apply to something outside of the system, like people, the people who are coming into the system? Emotional intelligence involves like, does this make me feel good? Do I feel good that other people are playing this? Those stuff come second nature, and that is very important as well to feeling out what makes you happy and what makes you not. However, if you add the attempt to make it intellectual, as in actively deconstructing it, when you feel like you're out of place, like things become out of place and you don't have enough emotional intelligence to handle it, intellectual intelligence can support and offer it. So like if you're super depressed, it's really hard if you're not practiced to figure out how to coax yourself to finding solutions or to find a method to improve your lifestyle. And for me, that was the golden ticket. The golden ticket was I'm no longer interested in emotional intelligence. I am interested in emotional intelligence, but not about myself. Now I'm more interested in the emotional intelligence of others. So it became more of an intellectual engagement to understand the emotional intelligence of other people. So now it's a combination of both. So whenever I'm interacting with you or coffers or something, I'm extracting more what I would deem more value. So every sentence you say to me, every sentence you type, I'm looking for more than just, oh, how I feel about it. So that's what I mean by increasing active participation. So what does that do for games? When I play through a game, more thoughts and ideas are being extracted per time use. So how does that translate to real world hot takes? I'm working smarter over time. I'm not working harder over time. I'm reducing the amount of repetitions that I require to intuit something when I can intellectually extract something as well on top of intuiting it. So the things I do, the tasks I do, the skills that are required to learn, the learning curve goes down in general over the course of most things. To adjust, if I'm feeling bad, I fix it quicker because I have more options. And that's the idea. That's what some people would call one of the core foundations of peak performance, like the idea of peak performers or success seekers. That type of thing comes up a lot. The thing that I'm describing, you're maximizing your time. Is it for everyone? I don't think it's for everyone. Definitely not. You find enough to make you happy sustainably. Can you be too much? Yes, you can. You can overcomplicate things. So you have to find what you can manage. Because I could try and optimize the heck out of my time, but it could be so confusing and so convoluted that I'm exhausted all the time. And that would take recovery time, and it would actually end up losing me time than increasing time. So you kind of just inch up until you can't handle it anymore. And that comes with practice. Kind of like speed practice in OSU. You practice until you can't handle it, and then you go back and you push it a little bit more. Mindset and habits and mental stuff is the same. To me, I visualize it in the same process. You practice it now, it's exhausting. Practice it at that same extent, it's going to be less exhausting over time because of practice and rehearsal. So I do this every day. Every time I go and stream something, it's for an intent. What am I doing today? I think this was the second take. I'm going to do a third take soon. And I can probably get this 3-star score, but that's the idea. Learning fast doesn't necessarily mean always learning the best. Sometimes slowing down is great too. It's the inherent nature of extracting more for time. I could be bumbling through stuff because I'm extracting more. So my improvements could slow down because I have to slow down to extract more information per attempt. So the number of attempts could go down, but the overall time could still be the same as someone who just goes in and play this map 100 times. And there's a chance this person played this map 100 times to reach the same goal that I played the map 20 times, but it's the same amount of total time that we spent investing in getting to that same point. It's just I did it less because I'm using that time that person was just doing to learn it in a different way, to abstract it, to do a bit of playing and a bit of thinking. And that's kind of the trade-off that you have. So it doesn't guarantee that my approach makes you faster. It's the approach that I am most comfortable with. And then from time to time, I would do what Sun does and just bootstrap. Just play it a couple of times, like just keep playing it and see what happens. And clearly I'm under practice. At least that's what I learned earlier this month. I'm only playing these things 3 times because of that. It's my optimal performance. First play is the sight read or the review. Second play is the refinement, like the more focused refinement. Third play is when anticipation and error-prone pre-reading falls in, so I do 3 attempts. Much like 3 sets in a workout, because mental fatigue drops pretty quick for me. Like on the 3rd repeat, mental fatigue comes in really much, a lot. Really much, a lot. So this is the 2nd take, right? No, this is the 3rd take, so I'd probably be prone to error at this point. That was not intentional. I had an intrusive thought. I skipped the note. Whoops. The thing I like about this game is it's not stamina bound for me, so I don't ever have to worry about my finger dexterity dropping due to stamina. One thing that will always that is ever present is I have a very finite amount of mental diligence, and it comes with repeating something, and I don't know if I want to train that too much, because it keeps me thinking of new things in a short amount of period of time. All right, this is the last of the tracks, so 3 takes. Here we go. 3 takes. That's what I mean. I tapped 1 extra time here. See, I tapped even when there's odds. there's odd even in this one, and from time to time I would tap the wrong amount, and it's usually on an odd actually in this game. I tapped 4 times. See, I dropped the 5th note. I tapped only 4 times there. It really does. It just makes it feel like I can comfortably play this all the time. It's kind of a nice change. I like it. So I can focus on my mental problems, or like my mental caps right now. So I can focus on, hey, stay focused, left, right, space, you know. So I'm focusing on the mental part, as opposed to my physical dexterity due to stamina. Although the burn in the hand sometimes feels satisfying, I would imagine if you're used to it. Yeah, if that's your form of feedback that you're used to, it definitely would feel satisfying. There comes the satisfaction of doing. Here's a mindset that it's gonna be it's gonna be a contrarian hot take, but the burning sensation is a concept. It's a conventional wisdom that has been reiterated to the point where an incredible number of generation of people have merely been exposed to the idea that that burning sensation has a lot of emotional attachment to it. The feeling of doing a hard work, right? Or taxing yourself and whatnot, but scientifically that's not true. Just so you know, like it's overwhelming converging evidence to the point where it's very hard to diminish that if you're feeling sore, like if your hand burns, it's not a sign that you worked hard or you put in a hard day's work. It's not reliable. It's a feeling, and it's very contentious and tenuous based on your starting point and your, you know, like there are a lot of variables that confound that. What is observable is the tracking and record keeping of what you did do. So, but conventional knowledge had made it so ingrained due to mere exposure. It's one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to monitoring how hard you push, how hard you've performed. So in this game, I cannot rely on the idea that, hey, stamina's not in this, my hand's not burning, am I working harder or less? It's unreliable. I can't compare what I'm doing here to the orange that is Osu, right? But on a days when you compare within it, you can measure and compare those metrics. And in Osu, if your hand burns one day and your hand doesn't burn another day, it's unreliable. But big but, this, we're not talking about emotional intelligence here, but emotional intelligence, when it burns, it adds to the satisfaction of, and I agree, I kid you not, days when I underperform, but I'm like struggling as heck to complete my sets, it feels like, ah, yeah, that burn, and like it feels so good, like I pushed so hard, and then I look at my record book and my journal, I underperformed. so so there is a really heavy emotional association that came from conventional knowledge. And if you think about it here, it's so strong. Ask yourself, what if you got better without ever having to struggle or feel like it's burning or feel like you might push yourself over the limit? The thing is, you might be surprised at how you can improve without necessarily always having to feel like you're about to die in your sets. So just entertain that idea for a moment. There are systematic ways to optimize physical performance without needing a feedback of, oh, I really crushed it kind of thing. But psychologically though, we have already associated it. Getting that burn, the DOMs, the soreness, the physical feedback, we have psychologically associated that with a sign of pushing and exhaustion. But our performance is indistinguishable. Like it doesn't choose when you perform better or worse based on how you feel. It's what you literally did. So there are times when I really thought I was pushing hard. Like I was running. I don't use like a pace tracker or a heart monitor to track the micro moments in running. Some days I felt like I was going so fast. Like I was pushing so hard and I came in like 30 seconds later. And another day that I just felt like I was cruising. Yeah. Or some days I wake up, it's like, oh man, my knee is like, so I sit there, I massage it, try to get the knee stiffness out, and then it would be my fastest time. That day would be like I would go the fastest, like without effortlessly. And then some days I wake up, it's like, oh, I'm ready, yeah, I'm ready, and I go out, and I'm like, oh, that was okay, and then suddenly near the end, it's like I'm dying. It's like I had to have done well, right? I was like dying at the end, and I did worse. So it's one of those things, like I would prefer, I'm trying to dissociate myself, but I can totally relate. I empathize with you because I love the burn. It makes me feel so satisfied that I worked hard for the burn. However, the days that I perform the best usually are the days I feel great, and when I did it, I feel great. Like nothing happened, and it was, on paper, it's incredible. However, if you're relying on feelings, like if you didn't dissociate that, making it easy and not feeling easy, you could underperform dramatically because you're looking for the burn, right? And psychologically, you could convince yourself that you have to feel like it's exhausting to push yourself. So it works double-edged. For me, when it comes to performance, I record. That's just it. And more monitoring stuff that you have, it deviates and separates yourself from it. But it doesn't take away from the satisfaction. Because I do actually feel a little dissatisfied when I run my fastest time and didn't feel like anything. Like the days when I run the best, and it's like, wait a minute, it didn't feel like I'm challenging. Am I underworking? Like I have to actually convince myself, no, that's a faster time. Like that is faster. It's like, cool, I'm getting faster, and it was effortless. How hard can I push the next day? That's relying on your emotional intelligence. The next day you go out like running, is like, oh, I'm dying, and then you look and you perform worse. So it backfires all the time. So relying on emotional feedback a lot of times, or feeling feedback, it can be high when it's really high. You can rely on it when you're getting really positive feedback. Just harness it. However, it doesn't substitute for record keeping. I think one of the greatest grains of salt wisdom that can drive someone to not have too many missteps is the idea that record something you can measure that isn't feeling dependent, or as far removed as possible that's feeling dependent. and use that as a way to gauge your satisfaction and stuff, and how reliable your emotions are. Emotions can become reliable if it has a tether to performance. So for Osu, for example, my emotions were stabilized because I measured enough to know that, yeah, this is about where I thought I would be. And then it was confirmed, and how do I feel about it? Pretty satisfied. It's pretty much where I think I am, and great. What's the next step? Improving. Not a method for everyone. If you're a hype train guy, go for it. Hype train guys, I can't deny hype train guys. When you're hot, you're hot. You're just incredibly hot until you're not, right? But for that time, you can maximize your hot ride to the sun. And that worked when I was younger. So I can't deny that it doesn't work, for sure. I know a lot about burning sensation. My arms before and after. That's interesting because I didn't hear a top player talk about recording and mostly hear them talk about feeling. Yes. Survival bias. Yes. They are the exception. We have to remember, top player, right? Top player worm. They got to the top through a method that worked for them. Also, they already made it, which is your survival bias, which is exceptional. It's great to understand about survival bias if anyone's interested. Like when you succeed and then you look back on what made them succeed, the process is lost, generally speaking. A lot of details of the process. But the people that survive that way are the people that are doing these things. What are all the other people doing? So what are the people that are running your corporations or making $1 million off of your platform by sitting there? What are the other methods that are happening that consistently churn out people with money or people with success? So the idea is, it's great that those top players made it with their model, but what is the larger scheme? Their models apply for the rest of the population. I would argue it's a mixed bag. I'm actually not arguing for what I just described as the majority. I'm saying that it's probably a mixed bag. Just that the game, the system, right? Osu's top players, the system can favor that. Systems can favor different approaches. So one of the approach that I'm suggesting is appropriate for other things. Probably not Osu. You already see where my Osu rank is, right? You already saw my Osu proficiency. It clearly doesn't work. Like, it's not optimized for Osu. I could change it and like tweak it to try to get higher. That's the idea. But it tells you, the top players kind of sort of tell you about what the system encourages. So you can technically model after them if you want. The idea is you have to assume that you can. So the choice is yours. If you look at the top player and you say you can, go for it. I look at the top player and I say I can't, or I can't right now, and I'm not willing to invest and retrain my approach because I have other goals. My goals do not include being a top Osu player. Do I want to? No, not really. Do I think I realistically can? No, not really either. That's what motivates me to not take that course of path. I can optimize myself to be well more valuable in other things, and that makes me feel better. And then being great at tapping something. It's not to diminish it, because they can take that mindset, right? So those top players, if they want to pivot to something else, if they were keeping track of how they're feeling and stuff, all that stuff, they can take it and channel into something else. In case like Osu, I don't know, takes a faceplant or something. So you can take what you do best and mold it again. And I hope that's what games teach people. indirectly or intuitively. I am not a instructor or professor that didn't use, like, I am a professor that used gaming theory to engage and teach students, and it's very applicable and encouraging and useful. One of my favorite content creators who is starting a program that awards college credit to learn the foundations through interaction and methods that are common to YouTube. And then when they're done with those, they can transfer those accredited credits and into a university, or like a appropriate collaborating university. So it is possible to translate a lot of the stuff that you do every day, iterate on them, and apply them to other things. It will maximize the value. Like, you know that feeling when a game ends or a game closes and you start thinking, well, I'm never going to use this skill again. Or like, man, I wish it didn't have to end because I invested so much. It doesn't. You're going to extract that skill. It's not to say that it's 100%. You'll get diminished returns, but it makes it feel less bittersweet. It makes it feel less bitter in the bittersweetness. MMORPGs is one of the worst feelings inherently, intuitively. If you're an emotional intelligent person and you play an MMO and that MMO finally closes the door after 7 or 10 years, you are an emotional train wreck. Like, there's so much ambivalence because the whole time you were playing the MMO, you treat it like a closed system. You treat it like you weren't nurturing friendship, nurturing relationships with other people, nurturing communication. Some people actually do say, I literally went through this several times because I played 4 MMOs and they've closed down and we've had like friends and stuff. When the close is imminent, they would say things like, man, I spent so much time, it's all gonna just go up in smoke. It's like, and this person's talking to me, you mean I'm not part of that value system? So are we gonna play the next game together? It's like, well, you know, now I have to go and focus on my job and stuff. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm not part of your value system. That's fine. But remember that you are determining the value that's transferable and caring. You can't, and mind you, this is what happens a lot. They blame the developer for undervaluing their dedication. It's like, well, what I see is all the time I played this game is indirectly invested in a person who clearly doesn't want to play the next game together. And all the while, during the game, this person would be like, oh yeah, let's make a great guild and let's be family members and we learned about each other. And then the next thing, when this closed system just closes down, it's gone, that tether is gone, and it reveals the true nature of their active participation. It was the closed system that kept them invested, not what's outside, which is basically everyone else. Like, all the people are outside the system. They can choose to be outside the system, but they didn't. They're like, oh, I hope we play the next game together. Immediately, all the bridges get burned. No one knows each other anymore, and I don't even talk to them anymore. Like, it's just gone. In fact, just recently, I continue playing a game, and their reason for leaving is they don't agree with the devs changing a system. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, I would log on to play with you because we're friends and stuff. It's like, no, they're just gone. That reveals the truth. You can say one thing and not be aware of your own desires. Their desire was that the game provide a closed system that incentivized them to play with other people, not the other way around. So whenever they spend their time, it's like, oh, I care about family, I care about friends, and that you don't. You legitimately don't. You just left the game because you disagree with what happened to the closed system. Well, the closed system presents a challenge for you to play with other people. If you care about playing with other people first, irregardless of the challenge or change of the closed system, it's another thing to tackle together. But it's the reverse. The cause and effect was reversed. So these individuals, and fundamentally as a pragmatist, I have no emotional investment in it. So I drop them like a dead weight. That's it. Like, it doesn't stop me from playing a game. Like, I play this game to interact with people. So if you stop playing because the devs changed something, I'm going to continue playing. I'm not going to drop it because you decide that friends are worth less than the game. So hear me out here. Let me apply your same logic. Do I want to continue playing with someone who would drop and burn all their bridges because they disagree with what the devs did with their game? Or do I want friends who continue playing because they know how to adapt to the closed system because they favor playing with other people over the closed system? Who would you pick? For me, it's the latter, not the former. So going with the guy that thinks they are great friend material and stuff, only to be dropped in the next game they play, nah. Like, I pass for me. Personally, that's my choice. Personally, that's your choice. It's just business. You care about games more than you care about people. If you don't accept that, that's fine. Because if you don't accept it, we can't even be friends in the first place. So, no loss to me. I'm sorry for your emotional intelligence, but the truth is, I'm telling you, as a friend, if you can't handle that, we can't be friends either. So everything's red flags. So better to burn the bridge before it becomes toxic. So there it is. And why don't I play lots of multiplayer games? Most people care about the game more than the people. I'm not blowing smoke up people's butt. Like, legitimately, the ones that tend to try to convince themselves, they use that as a coping mechanism to stay with the game. The moment you hear that, you want to be concerned. Like, for example, oh yeah, I don't know, conversation comes up, I don't know if I'm gonna play this game much longer if the devs keep doing this. And then you're like chatting, right, between two people, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm gonna keep playing this game because you're playing it. Why are you bringing up the other thing? That's a red flag. The moment that person says like, hey, there are other factors that could affect me stop playing this game, it's like, I guess friendship is not one of them. that's you got to be real with yourself, honestly. That's I lack emotional intelligence, but one of the silver lining is I clearly see the signs. I'm not gonna say, oh, we're friends. There's no way this person is gonna quit because the developer is gonna release an unpopular patch in the next patch and just drop it like a dead weight. It's like, they're my friends. That would be an emotional intelligence thing. So I rarely do I see that because I play games for intellectual things. I make friends for intellectual enrichment. I want to learn from them. I want to learn from people. Did they betray me? No. I learned why they left. I learned how to burn that bridge without hurting their feelings. I did a hot take. It was way more complicated than that, and it went over like the period of 6 months and whatnot. Especially when you leave guilds and like leave alliances or clans, like those things play over like 3 or 4 months of interaction. Friends who choose to be lost for a reason outside of friendship were not your friend. Here's the thing, right? When you rely on emotional intelligence, it's hard to see that in hindsight. It's difficult. It's very difficult to be in hindsight. Friendship breeds faith and trust, and it can pay off. Like, when just as possible that friends wouldn't stay in the first place, they could stay because you've chosen to enforce friendship. So we have to be fair to all the outcomes. There are outcomes where a person convinced someone else to play and they were grateful for it. when initially they would have left. So that's kind of like encouraging someone to lose weight or get in fitness, but they didn't want to because the next hurdle would cause them to quit. So that's a support system. So viewing one or the other, it could be a combination. I just chose, that's the compromise I did. I did not choose to try to keep them in the game. However, I told them that already in advance, that I am not an individual that would pigeonhole someone for my own benefit. Like, if I wanted them to stay and play with me, I am not a person who even think about that. I don't ask people to do things for me if they don't want to do it. However, friendship and loyalty, duty, yeah, I know I said duty, that takes priority a lot of times, and it can sway people. So I don't have a lot of friends in gaming because I don't strong arm, I don't provide persuasives like, am I worth it? I don't bring up that type of line of thinking. I don't tell people that I'm worth more than a video game because I can't know that from their perspective. So I wouldn't try in the first place. So do I have anybody that I play regularly in video games? I don't. Do I know a lot of people who play video games that I have played and we talk about it, but I'm not playing it? Yes, absolutely. Incredible amount of it. But because I prefer to listen to them. Like, hey, what are you playing now? Tell me about it. And then it's up to them to value their passion enough to share it with me. Now, their passion could exceed so far that they would want to sway me to playing the game, and that's where I find myself playing with more people temporarily, because eventually I would say 8 out of the 10 times yeah, it doesn't help with all the confetti thing too. But my bitrate has dropped. It did the same thing like a month ago. It's an ISP problem. Usually I would take like a bathroom break and see if the bitrate comes back. Okay, we're back. So in the next 5 or 10 seconds, the frame rate should be normalizing. The ISP has hiccups during specific times of the day randomly. It's due to the interference, you know. So all the stuff should be back. Yeah, it happens. ISP changes happen, like maybe maintenance or something. It happens. Like over the 4 years, maybe 15 times the ISP just drops, and then you just have to call it a day, and then come back. It maintenance, down it, outage, it happens. So it's understandable. But thanks for telling me. I'm glad. If this ever happens, please do say something, because I would just pause and wait for the bitrate to come back. It's one of the inconveniences of potential ISP drops. Anyways, I don't know what I was talking about, but in the end, friendship is tenuous, so you have to either want to seek it a lot or not. But when it comes to video games, man, I try to connect with people who I want to invest outside of the game as much as possible. The more tethers, like say you really like playing with someone, right? You just hit it up and you competitively, the more bridges you build outside of the game will solidify when that game disappears. So valuing friendship deals with building upon things that don't expire or have an expiration date. So that's largely why I still enjoy single player experiences, because the only relationship I have with single player relationships is the relationship with myself. Multiplayer games is a phenomenal way of getting rewarding interactions. However, it's also an incredible exponentially higher requirement of effort to retain the value you had from multiplayer games, unless you change your frame of mind. If you want to change your frame of mind, I play multiplayer games to meet new people and to learn from new people. It's in contrast to people who play multiplayer games to make friends or to interact with people. I go and see, observe, and learn from new people. I don't necessarily have to interact with them. So your mindset can really offset the painfulness and emotional investment you have with games. And Osu kind of strikes a great balance between that, because you have your leaderboards, but you also have your local stores. So you can have a relationship with yourself, yourself, the Osu player, and between yourself, the Osu player, and yourself, the Nano, like the other components of when you're not playing Osu. They can have a handshake and understand and learn from that. That's kind of what self-improvement games deal with. They intuitively focus and try to balance between self-improvement and improvement relating to other people. But Osu is also very indirect because of that. It feels more indirect. Meanwhile, like, Coffers basically just plays multiplayer games all the time. I can't relate to that, but the last multiplayer game I played exclusively was because of Coffers. We played Overwatch 2 just to see how Overwatch 2 was. I think that was the last one. Yeah. Okay, that was just one take. Alright, we're gonna go with two take. Rhythm Sprout is being the platform of choice for digression these days, huh? The even odd patterns back to back are rough in this, but I think I'm getting a little bit better. Oh, we nailed that. Oops. That's a wrong input. I accidentally hit not my dodge bar. But that was pretty clean, actually. That was pretty clean until I forgot my space bar. Oops. I accidentally dropped it. I tapped even numbers on those odds. Twice. I tapped 6 times instead of 5 times. Twice. To give you an idea of the speed for the burst is about 160 BPM. To relate it back to OSU standard. So they're not that fast. But they come in it's 5 and 6. So 5, 6, 5, 6. Back to back. So did you watch over Coffers 2 while playing Overwatch 2 with Coffers? Absolutely. I can't break my I can't break away from being a shot caller. So I tend to shot call and explain the stuff all the time. It's a habit that I don't usually break very often. So whenever I'm playing like solo queue and stuff, I tend to stay away from voice comm. It was okay. If you're talking about Overwatch 2, Worm, if you're asking about Overwatch 2, it was okay. I played Overwatch like 3 years straight from closed beta, like the first Overwatch. Like I was on the Overwatch train. I was on the Blizzard train actually, because I also started Hearthstone in closed beta all the way till now, but I don't play standard anymore. I don't play Hearthstone standard anymore. I think the last time I played was 3 years ago. I just play Battlegrounds and keep up with mercenary upkeep. Just I guess it's kind of fun to like look at the interactions and stuff that they develop. Yeah, Hearthstone is really big. Hey Angel. Caring about skill outside of games reminds me of one gif of surprise John Cena with a text saying, when the tournament staff says I can't dox or send death threats or other players. Wait. Oh, I see. As like an alternative way of winning. Just dox your opponents or deter them from participating. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's extortion and like fear, but you know. Or not extortion, that's deny non-compete methods. I mean, if you know, a tournament is a closed system, so yeah, you can definitely do something outside the system, but the system won't reward you with it, you know what I mean? So then you have to think about the consequence. If you dox and or send death threats, the system has no way of rewarding you in any capacity for that. And outside of that, right? Or if people don't show up, but listen, when that becomes, when the method becomes disclosed, right? I mean, you can it can be rewarding like tangibly, right? You won because they forfeit, but did you win subconsciously, or did you win mentally, or did your handshaking with yourself, right? You're thinking outside the system. How do you reward yourself then? And I'm gonna be honest, a lifetime of fear of being robbed of accolades that were achieved unfaithfully within a system, is that worth getting the reward in the first place? Fine, that's a... How are you doing, Angel? It's been a while. That's a really cute chicken. It's a cute bird waving though. Do you want to live a lifetime as a fraud, or in exchange for that that moment of gratification? I don't know. It's up to you. But for me, it's not worth a lifetime of fraud. We've heard those nightmare stories about the first lie leads to a web of lies, right? Then leads to an all-consuming life of lies. If it's sustainable to you, Watch the movie Informant. Actually, I guess you could watch Wolf of Wall Street as well. Either of those movies. Those are the two movies that come off the top of my head. Watch either The Informant with is it Mark Wahlberg, or Wolf of Wall Street. Watch those two movies. Very successful people. They're loosely based on a real person. Like what I mean is they're dramatizations of a real person. Gotten lots of success, but the web of lies catch up to them. So, is it sustainable? Probably for most of their. You can probably do it for the most of your life, certainly. But is it worth? You could watch either of those movies and ask yourself. And they're only like compartmentalized. So movies exclude the other things like passage of time, repeating those same lies, the day-to-day. The movies are accelerated timelines. So just imagine what happens in the movie times 100. You know, like every second of your life, because they only capture pivotal points in which the obstacles come by. That would be a great vicarious experience if you want a movie that illustrates that. Everything comes here's even a fraud is so hard in this world, man. Yeah, so here's the thing, right? I just watched Rick and Morty and the second season of Clarkson Farm, but before that I watched a series called Suits on Amazon Prime. Not sponsored, by the way. From season 1, the whole thing, season 1 through 9. That entire series is about micromanaging being a fraud. Like fraudulent deception in a successful gray area. If you can watch through all that, I wouldn't want to live that life. Personally. Like that's me. I would not want to juggle all those things. It's largely why I'm not a lawyer or a politician. I don't want to juggle those things. But I'm not diminishing that it's not possible. It probably is. It's just it takes a toll on you as a person, and I don't want that. Lawyers trying what so yeah. So being deceptive is the word. Yes. And I'm not saying, and fraud doesn't mean you have to lie like directly about it. A fraud is an act of deception. So the word I would prefer to use all the time is deception. You're painting an incomplete image as a complete image to the otherwise uninformed, which is very close to content creators and influencers. And it's an appropriate approach. It's very taxing, it's exhausting, it requires a lot of skill, grit, tolerance to be able to do that sustainably. So kudos to them if they can do it for the rest of their lives. I can't. I'm not a politician. I'm not a lawyer. I don't work in policy. That stuff, it just ages me incredibly to juggle most of that. I'll say this Decepticon from now on, but it says with the extra letter. Yeah, Decepticon. You would be a Decepticon. Although, hot take, I think Optimus Prime is kind of like Captain America, pompous, righteous, and moral grandstanding all the time. I don't resonate with that either. It's like the other extreme that I don't really. Yeah, Optimus Pride. That's good. That's great. If that was a typo, that's the best typo ever. Optimum Prime. Oh no, it's even better. Optimum Prime. Yes, Pride. Optimum Pride. That is a great example. It's the righteous grandstanding. And that's even more exhausting. It's a meme. Optimum Pride is a meme. Wait, but does it have to do with Optimus Pride? Prime? Wait, is it a meme that it's a literal meme connecting the two? Oh, snap. Bumblebee stands unite. Bumblebee, I would resonate a lot more. The earnest, innocent, try hard, that is sentimental. I could resonate with that a lot more than Optimus Prime. A more incredible high moral grandstanding, knowing exactly what's right and what's wrong. That I can't empathize with that very easily. But I can, I call Bumblebee Humblebee. Okay, so I don't know if that's a meme, but I call Bumblebee Humblebee most of the time, because he's like Bumblebee is like the bumpkin, the worker bee, right? And that fits with its like naming scheme and stuff. So I kind of like that idea. So basically there's a video of someone in a car filming the truck next to them with the Optimus Prime paint job, and they're yelling, "Babe, it's Optimum Pride," and they even make the Transformers transforming noises. wait. wait. You're gonna have to DM me that video. Are there footage? I want to see this. I'm completely unaware of this thing. All right, this is the third take, so we're gonna try a good third take here. Oh, we got the first half. No, dang it. I dropped it. Dang it, I dropped it. It was on an easy part too. Like a part that I was feeling pretty comfortable with. Dang it. And that's it. That's the rest. And you just have a victory lap. We can get this FC tomorrow for sure. Or not for sure, but there's a high chance. I think this is the most comfortable one of the last couple. Except maybe Fruitopia. Here's where the discipline comes in, right? I could do it again right now, but I'm not going to. I'll just rest assured that my neuroplasticity is going up as I'm doing this. 69. Nice. I think that's it. And then whenever we accomplish one more, we'll try for the boss battle. Actually, there is one that I want to try to see if my reading speed has not improved because I have not generally taxed it, but maybe this one. This is the one that I struggle with a lot. We can add this one to the list. Maybe we can do this one. The boss ones are too difficult. It's gonna be too long for me to do the boss ones. We'll see about this one. This track is pretty great. It's very dynamic. Fun to listen to. Oh. Yep. Yep. Oh my gosh. I keep reversing it. I keep thinking it's right space. But it's right space every other pair. It's right space every other pair. So I got it in a reverse order each time. How I pass this level with a good score is I just focus on every other double as opposed to all the doubles together. It's the difficulty of having two hands. And now I have to pair two hands back and forth in different orders. And that's well beyond my ability at the moment, because you don't do that very often. The dodge bar is the... I did it backwards again. I'm not reversing. Man. Using two hands, man. Using two hands. I get them mixed up. I underutilize that so much. And this is like a rest period. This one is a rest bypass. Don't give me that. Listen, guys, stop being lewd, all right? Freaking sus boys. Oops. I can't consistently getting that. Oh my gosh. I can't get that freaking penta properly. I only got it like 2 out of 6 times. Listen, son, we're not talking about loot things. Calm down. Putting my money where my mouth is and dealing with the consequence of my action things so hard. Whoa, whoa, you need to calm down. Don't put this on me. Actually, we got pretty decent hack, so we can still get the score or accuracy. Hack gaming. Oh, I finger locked so hard. It's so hard to repeat the reverse. All right. Still can't do the repeat in the reverse. So like what is it? It's like right, then middle finger, index finger, and then it goes from right hand, left hand, and then it does the mirror. So then it goes left pointer finger, middle finger, then it goes left hand, then right hand. So you had to mirror it, and then you just keep flipping back and forth. And every time I thought I was doing right hand first, I was doing left hand first. So then every single time I was reversing on the wrong beat, and then immediately you just die. You don't have time to think about it because I'm too slow. All right. That wraps up our daily rhythm sprout.